I think we're still having a lot of discussion and debate about what is shared value. What do we really mean? Those of you in companies are going to find that a lot of your leadership team is kind of wondering, where this fits and what it really is. And the hope is that this second annual Shared Value Summit will turn into a whole array of activities that will take place throughout the year with increasing richness and increasing depth as we all kind of learn together, how to do this. That's our opportunity. I think we now have hundreds, thousands of examples of creating shared value across every imaginable field, every imaginable sector, every imaginable function of business. That's not the issue now. I think the issue now is how we actually kind of accelerate the application of this idea in companies. And that involves tools issues, that involves organizational issues, that involves a whole set of issues in terms of new kinds of partnerships. So what we're really focusing on now is how do we put this idea into practice? I think what we all, I hope, in this room understand is that there's only one institution in society that can create wealth. Only one, and that's business. Government can't create wealth. Government can harvest wealth, redistribute it, use that to make investments in social, in public goods and things like that, but government can't create wealth. NGOs can't create wealth as NGOs. NGOs can take resources and hopefully use those resources to solve important social challenges through various programs and other initiatives. We also understand, I think those of us in business, that a healthy business that's going to create wealth and sustain that wealth creation over time requires a healthy community in which to operate. If we have communities that are failing, if we have people that are that have problems, if we have poverty, if we have inequality, if we have an unhealthy community, ultimately business is constrained, deeply affected and constrained in the ability to create wealth. That said, we are in a period of history where I think there is an incredible awareness of societal challenges all around us. I think we're starting to understand that government and NGOs, although they're doing amazing work with growing sophistication, simply lack the resources to actually tackle all these problems. And that leads you naturally to business as a major kind of focal point of thinking about what do we do to go forward in society. But the problem right now we have in business is that we in business, are often perceived to be not solving those problems. In fact, in many cases, we're perceived to be causing many of those problems. Where we are today is, I think, we in business are being perceived as not essentially playing that fundamental role that we have in society, but indeed maybe prospering at the expense of the community. And the irony, of course, is most all of you are doing more and more and more and more to try to address the community and be a good citizen and be responsible and provide resources. That activity has been going up steadily, but yet the legitimacy of business continues to fall. I think company after company today is struggling with the question of what's our purpose. And, over the last 10 or 20 years, we had a glib answer to that question: maximizing shareholder value. And that answer doesn't cut it anymore. But shared value offers a kind of another opportunity, which is capitalism itself. It says that the more we learn about societal issues, the more we learn about poverty, the more we learn about health, the more we learn about housing, the more we learn about all these social issues, the more we see expanding opportunities to actually use capitalism to address those societal issues. So the shared value level is where involves a business model. As we address a societal issue, through our business in a way that allows us to earn a profit. That's the fundamental distinction. Because if we can get capitalism working, it's scalable. If we can get capitalism working, it's sustainable. We can do it forever. We don't have to keep raising money. It raises its own money. If we can get capitalism working, we kind of leverage the most powerful assets that we have as businesses. Shared value is about creating economic value by tackling a social issue, whether it's environment or energy or health or nutrition or the need for affordable housing. That's what shared value is all about. It's not kind of sharing the value we already created. It's actually not about values. One of the interesting things about shared value as a concept is it doesn't depend on anybody's personal values. So if there's an important social problem and we can use a business model and we can advance that social problem and we can do that sustainably, then that's what we should do. Whereas so much of corporate responsibility efforts are having to do with people's individual perception of this is more important or that is more important. But shared value says if in our business, if we can find areas where we can actually move the needle, given the nature of our business and our capabilities and what we do, then those are the ones we should pursue. It's not a question of personal values. It's a question of targeting and focus and selecting the way we are going to compete. It's about driving the business model so we can simultaneously achieve the societal objective and a good economic objective. That's the basic idea. You know, pharmaceutical companies have struggled for many years with the problem that pharmaceuticals are expensive. And what they did to deal with that problem traditionally was they gave away drugs to poor people or discounted them. That's the social responsibility model. The problem with that approach is there's just not enough money. As somebody said yesterday at a meeting some of you were in, you know, philanthropy is great, but it's a drop in the bucket. There's just not enough money to solve the problem that way. But what the pharmaceutical industry is now doing is they're realizing, wait a minute. You know, we served, with our traditional business model, we served maybe 500 million people that were rich. And we presuppose an existing healthcare delivery system. And so our whole approach to competing was based on selling to rich people with a well-established healthcare delivery system. But we missed, you know, 6 billion people that can pay something. And so what the industry is now focused on, finally, is how can we create shared value? How can we address the problems of lower income citizens, often in countries without well-established health systems, with a business model? And to do that, we have to reinvent our product a little bit. We have to reinvent the way we distribute it. We have to put much more energy into the health system development. But that pays back many, many times, as we've seen in examples like Novo Nordisk, who's built a gigantic insulin business in China that didn't exist before, that's highly profitable. That's driving their growth. And so the question is, how can we harness this power within our businesses and in the process create the most incredible energy and sense of purpose that you will ever encounter in your business career? That's our opportunity. All successful strategies over the next 5 or 10 or 20 years are going to have a societal dimension. If your strategy doesn't have a societal dimension, wake up. Because it's those societal dimensions that, first of all, are going to help you unleash these opportunities for innovation and growth and serving new markets. But they are also going to be much more nuanced and sustainable than your traditional cost and quality, stuff that we've been doing for the last 5 or 10 years. Think of Whole Foods. Now, here's a company where the core of their strategy has a societal dimension. And, the traditional grocery stores just, beat themselves up, discounting, selling commodities. But this societal dimension has given Whole Foods the space to differentiate and distinguish and create lots of complexity and nuance in terms of what its competitive advantages really are and how it serves customers in ways that many customers really need. And 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 years from now, people will want to work in business because they'll understand that that's the institution in society that has the greatest opportunity to make real change in society. That seems shocking, doesn't it? So hopefully, the number one thing that you should all take away here is that the shared value thinking opens up a whole new opportunity set. A whole new set of things you can do to drive productivity and drive profitability and drive growth in the business. And that's exciting. That's exhilarating. What we're seeing today is something absolutely fascinating in terms of how companies are starting to learn to think about themselves in a different way. And this has to do with strategy. I mean, a company like Nestle doesn't think of themselves as a food company anymore. They think of themselves as a nutrition company. This is a very basic, fundamental change in how the company defines itself and what its business really is. I think you should ask yourself, does your mission statement, does your strategy statement embody a sense of purpose somehow? Can you see a purpose there that somebody would rather come to work for you than go to Teach for America? And if you haven't gotten there yet, you'll get there. But this is the order of transformation. I've frankly never seen anything like this in business. And government, I think, in many ways has a long way to go as well. Government has thought that since social was inconsistent with economics, since profit was inconsistent with being good and worrying about social issues, since there was a trade-off between economic and social, government had to be the one that take the hammer and pound on our heads and say, you're required to be social. You're required to give, you're required to do this, you're required to do that. Rather than seeing that government's job is to create a platform and infrastructure and basic investments which will allow the shared value process to spool up and drive progress. We're talking here about something that in many ways is the most exciting opportunity that I think I've seen in my entire career, is to do this stuff. The more we learn and the more tools we have and the more examples and the more rigor, I think the more we'll be able to succeed at this quest, which I think, again, to me, is the single greatest opportunity we have in society these days to actually deal with a lot of these problems that we're facing.